Hi everyone and welcome to Stitchwick Creations. It's Halloween and... hang on. What's that? 1 second. It's Halloween and welcome to the Haunted Circus. In the summer there was an invitation on Instagram to create a performer for this spooky circus. So roll up and come and see who we have here. Our ringmaster Diamondza Craft, Stephoo Doll's automaton, Lemon Kitten's hoop aerialist, Nerdy Capybara's sad clown, Lady Dynamite creates popcorn vendor, Biene Babies magician's assistant, Customs by Sans fortune teller, the South Paw Dolly's magician, Doll Party by Zoe's wind-up doll, Bonequices by Nuno's bearded lady, Wizingotta's strong lady, Krystal Dolls juggling clown, Lacey's creations spooky juggler, Noodle Toots contortionist, Bohopunkz tattooed person, Catmeleon Studio's beast tamer, Electric Bunny VT conjoined twins, The Snake Charmer by me, Muni Bayo's marionette. After this has finished, please go and have a look at everybody else's creations because they are absolutely stunning. But let's see how the Snake Charmer was made. I've got a Shriek-wrecked Frankenstein doll, who I've already decapitated. I'm going to trim bits off that I don't want with a sharp blade. I'm also going to be using a slightly knackered Viperine doll. Yes. I use a selection of tools to get the fins off. The scalpel blade works brilliant for the fine up and close stuff, but they were quite tough, so I used a mixture of wire clippers and scissors in the end, and did the fine and fancy bits with the scalpel blade. I think I'd already started preparing Viperine's head a while ago for something and then gave up on the idea, so we're just going in with some boiling water to soften the glue and some needle nose pliers to pull out those plugs. This glue was really stubborn, so at some point I had to slice the back of her head open and pull it out with the pliers because it was just gross. It's gross. I give her face another clean with acetone to get rid of any sticky residue and any bits and pieces that it's collected whilst it's been sat in a box waiting for me to do stuff with it. And we'll close that up with a little bit of super glue. I'm going to give the scalp a coat of black paint just in case there are any gaps in the hair that I'm going to plug in. This Frankenstein has got moulded on stitches, so I'm going to take my trusty scalpel blade again and start whittling them off. I usually battle with my airbrush, but I've been told to use this stuff that helps improve the flow. So, a couple of drops into this mix of flesh colour and we'll see if it makes it any better. And it did. It really worked. So I'm giving her a nice coat of the fleshy colour. I think I gave her a couple of coats in the end because she's quite green underneath. And I did some blushing as well with the airbrush. Whilst the coverage is great, there's always going to be problems with joints, so she's going to have some greeny bits. I'm just going to have to live with that. Originally Viperine had some snakes coming out of this little groove in her head. I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I've realised it's not going to look very nice, so I'm going to stab it a bit and make holes for some rerouting and paint it to match the rest of the scalp and use that as her hairline. No, why? I'll reglue that as well. back to whittling fins. There is some more down here as well I hadn't noticed. So these ones are easier to get off with the scalpel. I left the glue in the split to dry overnight this time. Hopefully it'll stick better. I'm going to take my rerouting tool and slip some hair over my finger and slide it onto the needle, and then stab the head. I'm just going to do the edges on this one and the parting, because she's got a fancy hairdo that's going to look like a lot of hair, and if there's already a lot of hair, it's going to make it look super poofy. I'm happy the parting's nice and full, so I'm going to use my trusty Yoo-hoo glue and stick a load in that neck hole and poke it around so it touches all the hair plugs. I'm keeping the hair in pigtails to try and make the hair sit flat, and she's going to have some special buns. Head wrapped in a burrito and prepared with a layer of Mr. Super Clear, I can start painting her face. For this doll, I actually did some planning. Using Dolly Mixture's doll planning book, I did a little sketch. So this is my idea. I'm going to give her some blush. I'm basing her face off an old actress called Marlene Dietrich. With a base blush layer down, I can start looking at the shape of her face and her eyes, and specifically her eyebrows. Her look very much is from the 1920s, 1930s, so I'm trying to emulate that on this face. She's got a very similar face shape already. Once I'm happy with the eye shape, I can start using the pastels to deepen the eye sockets and make her eyes look a bit more smoky and dreamy. I go back and forth with various browns, and eventually I'll go into some dark browns and blacks to deepen those eye sockets, and each time it stops sticking, it's time for a new layer of Mr. Super Clear. This is a condensed version of what I've done, but we're just sketching in the eyebrows, and eventually I'll deepen them with a dark brown and try and do some individual hairs, but you can't really see them in very much detail unless you're really close up to her because they are so thin. I've built up the layers in the eyes, and I'm starting to put some eyeshadow on, just using a purple. You can't really see it very much on the final doll, but the subtlety in it is quite nice. Now let's give those ears some subtle shading. And we're back in with some more of the darker pastels just to keep on bringing out that smoky, deep set eye. And we're back on building up the eyeshadow colours again with those purples. I'm using a darker purple on the deeper set bits of the eye. Now let's make her snake to charm. I have an armature wire and some epoxy sculpt that I am sculpting into a snake's head. Using a selection of dotting tools and silicone tools, I shall sculpt a little face into this clay. Now the little snaky is curing, I can get back to the doll face. I'm going to use my UV resin to give her the shine on her eyes. I like doing this way better than putting gloss and catch lights on. It makes it feel more natural and it gives it a bit of a dome. It means it catches the light more naturally, so in photographs you don't have to worry about trying to get the lights to match with the catch lights and all that faffery. I just feel it makes them feel a little bit more alive. Now I want her to have super curly hair, so I have got some old electrical wire offcuts and I'm going to use those to wrap up the hair and do it all up so it's nice and tight before I give her a boil wash. Now she's had a dunk in some boiling water and her face is still there, I'm going to let her dry. I'd killed some bits that I'd had left with a chopstick and my curling iron and plugged them into her so she's got some frondy bits at the front. And despite all my planning, I decided that she wanted a purple tail instead of a green tail, so we're changing that. We're going to give her a coat of this chalky white paint, which is a bit like gesso. This prepares the surface without me having to sand every inch of it, as it's quite lumpy bumpy. Now we see if the curls have set. It's dried and now I'm going to try and unwind them all without pulling any of the hair out. And I think we can call this a success. I've spiraled the hair around the pigtail, a bit like a space bun, and just wrapping a loose elastic band around it and teasing some of the curls out to make it a bit more poofy. And then I do the same for the other side. I've got some stretchy trim. I'm going to make some kind of scrunchie to go around the base of the space bun. Once I've popped these on, I've got another bit of trim that's some fancy beading I'm going to stick in and hold in with some elastic bands to try and cheat a kind of headdress type effect. I did some fine tuning, pulled some bits of strands of hair out and added a small string of pearls. Using purple Vallejo, I'm going to spray the tail. This is a beautiful, deep royal purple, and I was really impressed with how well this went on. And because I've got some fancy paints from Turbo Dork, I wanted to give her a bit of a dry brush with this colour shift paint to make her scales look a bit more serpentine. Using a pattern from DG Requiem, I'm going to make her a little bralette top. I like to use parchment paper to trace on the pattern because I can still see the fabric underneath, so if it's got a pattern I need to match at any point, I can see what the pattern is underneath. I'm going to fray check all the edges just to make sure it doesn't fray and split. And while that dries, let's blush those boobies. These are going to be covered up anyway, but just in case there's any bit of a show, we're going to give it a bit of definition with some darker pastels. Now the tiny garment is dry, I'm going to hand stitch it because there is no way this is going to go in my sewing machine without being eaten up. Hand sewing is tedious and I either love it or hate it, and in this case I really wasn't enjoying it. Now that's all stitched up, I'm going to put some clear press studs on the back. It was looking a little plain, so I'm going to make some of my own tassels with some crimp beads and some garnet drop things, stones. So I've got 4 of these crimp beads on a needle, and I'm going to get one of these stones onto the end and then sew that on and then go back up through the crimp beads to make it a tassel. I'm not very good with describing these things. I hope what you see makes a little bit more sense than the words that I'm saying. And now we've repeated that lots of times across the front, I'm going to use some more of the same beads to decorate the top. And whilst I didn't enjoy doing the seams and the edges, this bit I really enjoyed doing. I don't understand. And now it's all put together, I'm personally quite impressed with it. So I'm going to make a ruffly skirt thing. This doesn't have a pattern, this is a monstrosity I have devised by myself. Just need to hem the edges and then I'll gather the sides and bring that into a waistband. Yeah, I'll do this bit on the sewing machine. I'm just using a straight stitch with a small stitch setting to do the hemming. I'm going to do it once and then turn it over a second time just because it's easier than trying to roll it. And now that's done, I'm going to use some straighteners to give it a bit of an iron just to flatten it out. pinned this off camera, but you can see I've just gathered it up equally on either side. I'm going to hand stitch the bottom edge first and then the sides and the top. I didn't want to put this through the sewing machine because the beads would just get chomped up. I attach a hook and eye onto the front so it will clip up nice and evenly at the front. Now I'm not taking any chances and I'm going to put some fray check on the edge just to make sure it doesn't go everywhere. I've reunited the head and the body. I've heated the head up first to make sure that it's nice and bouncy and pushed it back on, and I'm happy with that. Using a hair cuff, I'm going to give her some body jewellery. I've got some nail art gems as well that I'm going to put in there. I'm using the same pearls on the string that I used for her headdress, and I've got 2 bits that I'm just going to bind together with a bit of thread. Now back to our snake. I'm using cosclay as the body, so it's got a bit of a bend in it, and I'm just going to roll that out into one large snake and slice it down so I can insert the armature wire into it. Once that's all tucked in there, I can give it a bit of a roll and blend in the head to the neck. Using a variety of silicone tools and other clay tools, I'm going to give the snake some belly scales. And in my selection of sculpting tools, I found this weird little scoopy thing that is absolutely perfect for snake scales at this scale. I'm going to give her a bit of a bend and a twist so she's got some shape already in her, just in case the cosclay doesn't stay as bouncy as I'd like. And this is her baked. The snake. Anyway, still flexible. I'm quite impressed with this cosplay. Yeah, she moves quite nicely. It did crack a little bit when I overdid it, but there's some spiky bits, so I'm just going to use a nail buffer to get rid of any little tiny spiky bits and blend that join a little bit more. Now Snakey is prepared, I'm going to give him a coat of black as a base. Now he's drying, I'm going to tea stain the skirt because it looked a little bit too clean and a little too bright and white. So, nice cup of tea, and I'm just pouring it on and squeezing out the very ends because it was all gathering at the bottom. I didn't want it to be too brown. Using this green gold shift paint, I'm going to give Snakey a coat of green. And I'm going to paint his belly scales a light beigey creamy colour. Then with a lighter greeny gold, I'm going to dry brush over the snake. Well, I tried to dry brush over the snake, it was just a bit too thick and gloopy, but I quite like the colour they turned out. And now she's ready to put together. I really enjoyed making this doll, and I have had such a lovely time collaborating with all these other artists and seeing all of their creations come together. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Sarah from Diamondza Crafts, because she's just awesome and a lovely host. Thank you so much. And here she is all together. I hope you enjoy her photos. Please make sure that you check out everybody else's videos and go and give them some love, because they are truly incredible. I've had so much time watching their videos. I'm late to the party as usual, but life gets in the way too many times at the moment. Enjoy. Remember to check out these wonderful, wonderful creatures. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, do the subscribing thing, comment in the box below. I love reading your comments and answering them. And I hope to see you in the next video, coming very soon. Bye bye.